No simple road. No simple road. No simple road. No simple road.
Osiris.
Hey now, No Simple Road family. What's going on, guys? So we took off and drove up to the mountains and went to High Sierra Music Festival. And boy, what a journey it was heading over there, man. Driving from Portland, 9.5 hours, get to the festival. First thing we do is walk in, get lost, and run right into Mahali from Twiddle. And that was actually supposed to be our first interview, so it worked out great. And yeah, it was cool to be lost in the middle of a giant festival in the mountains and then just kind of walk right up to the dude that you're supposed to be interviewing. And he was standing outside the cafeteria place and was like, "Hey, how's it going?" I walked up and introduced myself. I'm like, "Hey, I'm Aaron from No Simple Road. We're supposed to be interviewing you in a little while." And he was like, "Okay, come with me, man. We'll go to my green room." And it was that simple, and the magic started there at High Sierra. It was really cool to get to sit down with those guys, man. And I know that they talked about some things they don't typically talk about in interviews. It was really cool. So, anybody have anything to add?
Yeah, this is Apple from No Simple Road. Also was on the journey to High Sierra Music Festival, where we had a great time, great people running the show. It was the most organized, awesome experience we've had. It was one of those like life changers. Walked away from it with new friends, family, and just memories.
Yeah, definitely. This interview clip that you guys are going to hear is part of the conversation that we had. We were talking about how they write and a little bit about their background and how they got together as a band. They had really kind of a unique thing with how young they were when they got together, man. Like, a couple of the guys were still in high school, Mahali, and the other guys were just juniors or freshmen in college. Yeah.
Ryan.
Yep. And, you know, they still managed to finish school and do their thing, but you'll hear that here. So
yeah, you'll hear that, and
a whole lot more.
A lot of laughter, a lot of fun, man. These guys are great.
So yeah, we're hanging out in the green room behind the what was the name of the stage?
The
Meadow? Big Meadow.
Big Meadow stage.
Yeah, we're behind the Big Meadow stage in one of the portables there where they had the green room for the bands that were getting ready to go on. And you hear a little bit of the air conditioner noise and you hear the band that's up on stage playing, but you know what? It just kind of adds to the atmosphere, man.
I think a cool thing, if you guys want to pay attention to the content of our conversation and the music going on behind the conversation, it really sounds like it was like on cue every time. Particularly Mahali talks about the bass, and then you hear the bass line really kick in, and it was just like really cool because it felt like everything was synchronicity that day. Even our having to drive back to get our RV and all that stuff, everything, the timing was like perfect. Everybody we dealt with was so sweet. Everybody that we interviewed were so insightful and willing to do the interview. And so that's another cool thing. Thanks for talking to us right before you get on stage. Like, you guys could be doing a million other things, like chilling, meditating, taking a nap. Yeah, sake. I mean, a million things. And you guys, you know, took a good like 45 minutes, right, with us. And then you guys did a kick-ass show.
Yeah,
I just can't even describe it, Mahali. Thank you. And Ryan, like, seriously, all you guys, Brooke and Deej, I'm not leaving you out. Like, you guys as a band really just wowed me, and that my favorite performance of the whole entire, festival.
Yep. So ladies and gentlemen, No Simple Road was on the road and went to High Sierra Music Festival and interviewed Twiddle. And this is a little bit of that. Check it out.
Said like I thought about this band like when I was before I even knew any of these guys, but like it just sort of clicked. Like I met Ryan, we started playing some of these songs. He was like, "Hey man, these are good." But we also wrote like in that first month, like I had a few songs, but we wrote a lot like kind of that are still.
He came to college with no intention of going to college other than to find a band.
Yeah.
So he
went to college to start a rock.
That was his plan. I met him the first day, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm just here to find a band." And I'm like, "Crazy, man! It's $30,000 a semester. What do you mean?" It's like, we ended up rooming and together, and I'd wake him up for class. He's like, "No, I'm just gonna write music today." He was just always confident about it. We'd wake and bake, smoke, and I'd find him in the dorm. We'd be writing music, and I was like, "Some confidence, dude."
I didn't fail any classes though.
You just didn't go.
The first semester. Second semester, I didn't go to any classes.
You just, yes. You gave us, I think he paid for a second.
I tried to get out of the housing thing, and they were like, "No, you're already paid for the year." So I was like, "Oh, cool. So I'm just going to live in the dorms for this semester because I paid for it."
Yeah.
Well, I didn't pay for it. Student loans paid for it. But I was able to pay my student loans off quick because I only went for 2 semesters. So I didn't really have too bad of a fucking hit there.
So this has been the only rendition of the band? Nobody's like left and
We
came
had
back?
a different bass player early on, but it was like really for the first kind of 2 years of the band, and he just wanted to do other things, go to college and play upright jazz bass and stuff.
And I was in the crowd dancing and loving it. I was a fan before I was in the band.
Really?
Yeah. I'm 4 years younger than these guys, so I was in high school when I met them.
Yeah, he
they were in
joined
college.
the band when he was a
There's
kid.
video.
They had me join the band.
Video of him like as a young 15-year-old just like fucking out in our crowd.
Boobs out and everything.
Really?
I'll tag that in the show notes.
Boobs out.
Wait, so then how did that happen? So they like approached you? Or,
My friends said I looked like the bass player, and they were like, "You should probably check out the band. They think you'd like them." And then I was like, "I love them." Immediately. There's 4 tracks they had. Because I couldn't buy a CD at the time. I didn't have any money.
Yeah, we had one show in Jake's Place or whatever, or what was it?
Yeah,
He
Bar
had
and Grill.
friends that were like, "This kid is so sick at bass."
Yeah, I never told them anything.
They're like, they're in this band, the Stu. Like, he's so sick. Like, they just, every time they were at a show, they would point out and be like, "He's so good at bass." So when our bass player left and we were like trying to act like stuck in my brain, like, what about that kid that everybody
says is so fucking awesome?
We went on
MySpace defined his band.
Stu, and the only thing that really stuck out about the band was his bass playing. And I was like, okay. So we called him up and we were like, "Can you come to the house to rehearse?" At a gig, the bass player, we had like the interim bass players filling in, got in a fight with Ryan, left the gig, so left us as a 3-piece.
No.
Yo, my bass player just left. You want to come up and jam sometime?
And
you're like,
Yeah, that's literally what I said.
I might be able to pull that off.
I was on a date with a girl and I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, whatever, talk to you later." Hang up the phone and then I'm just like, "Yeah!" Driving the car, almost driving out the road. She's like, "What the hell happened?" I'm like, "Oh, you're still here."
Open the door, shut around.
She rolls. I got shit to do.
Wow.
Bitch, I got you right.
But like, he was a kid. I mean, we used to do around. We did like New York City and Boston or whatever, and then he'd come sleep in the spare bed in my room at our like college house for like 3 hours, and his alarm would be going off, and I'm like, "Dude, you gotta shut that thing off."
To go back to school.
He's like, "I have to go." I'm like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "High school, dude." High school. I'm like,
Did you
"No."
finish?
Yeah.
Right on.
Hell yeah.
It really didn't make it more difficult. I was so excited that like the lack of sleep didn't matter.
I did
still
the-
falling asleep through math class, but I was fine with math. I did really well.
I did the same thing too, actually, because these 2 guys were freshmen in college, and I was a senior in high school.
He was still in high school when we found him too.
And,
We literally like searched.
Cherry picked the high schools for the best
And so
musicians.
We did. We had auditions and everything.
And they met me through our first bass player because I went to school with him.
But we're still really good friends.
Right. And we moved into a house together, and I still had I think like 4 or 5 months left of.
He moved into our like.
Yeah, I think I had like 4 or 5 months left of high school, and I had the money and everything. I mean, my home life was fine. I just had the money, and I was 18, and I was like, peace. I'm moving like 25 minutes out of town, and I still made it to school and everything else. But you know, these guys opened my eyes to a lot of things, and we had an awesome time. We had an awesome time
Snickers
and lived together and wrote music. And
It's a well-deserved Snicker.
Yeah, there were a lot of years that we all lived together. Did you?
I did. No, I lived with Brooke.
So we had like a house in the wood. You know, it's like 100 acres of mountain and property, and the basement was just like the throwdown jam room. We just would throw parties and play.
These young college kids just have a beautiful.
Dude, we had a waterfall.
We had a waterfall. The house was like a farmhouse, but you know, we were able to. I mean, we didn't fucking care. It was like our first house. If anything was better than what we were.
there's a pool table there.
Every
like,
night though was
fucking-
jamming. Like, go to the basement, let's practice, right.
Fucking amazing.
So next up is Jazz's Phish, and that was a whole thing, man. Yeah, driving. So we saw Twiddle and interviewed them, and then went to their performance and in the sun after driving all night, and then promptly got back in the car and drove 3 hours down the mountain to Reading.
Got back like 2 a.m.
Yeah, picked up an RV, got back at drove straight back.
Grocery shopping.
Yeah, went grocery shopping. Drove all the way back, slept a few hours, woke up in the morning, and went and watched Jazz's Phish play.
Yep.
And then interviewed him.
So we
And
did a little swappy swap that day.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And I have to say that their tour manager, Mandy, is on fucking point, man. Shout out, Mandy.
Yes, Mandy was awesome. So welcoming, so sweet.
Yep. And might I say, right on time. Like, exactly at 2 o'clock.
Well, yes, you might.
So, yeah, man. And I got an education from these guys big time about jazz and about finding it and what that means. And it was just really cool to get to sit down with the four of them, and we didn't get to hear all of it, but this is just a little bit of that. And what do you think, Mel? Shaking your head, yes. All right.
Yeah.
Well, and
Cool.
then after the interview, then we got up the next morning and got to see them
Again.
the whole set.
Yeah.
Play their asses
Oh,
off.
with Jamar.
He just came to life on that second performance that we saw. The James Brown, and
You'll see
just
a
how
clip
he
of it.
came up from behind, he was such a showman, but not at the same time, because when we talked to him in the interview, he was like soft spoken, like definitely like elegant in the way that he spoke and like carried himself, but like on stage he was like El Tigre.
The tiger. Yeah, man. Like seeing that and talking to him beforehand, hearing that he had played like chamber music and neoclassical and was trained in all of that. And Felix being self-taught and playing with these guys that were all, I don't know. It was just crazy. Farnell and all of them.
This is exactly why you cannot judge a book by its cover on any realms. Like, you never know what you're dealing with. Farnell, he is a Portland local, so right on, Farnell. We cannot wait to see the other ship connection. And anyway, the whole band, and again, can't ignore Mandy, just... It was very educational and very passionate. I felt like all of the people that we spoke with in this interview were very passionate. Even Mandy was passionate for her band and really took care of them. So I respect that. Oh, like it kind of reminded of me, like one little girl taking care of all these guys, like, and she just really cared about them and was like kind of like in a good way mother bear.
And handle her shit.
And yeah, she handled her shit. So that was really awesome, Mandy. Thank you for everything you did for us.
And getting to see them play is something special. There's a level of musicianship that is just unsurpassed watching these guys do their thing, and that they can take Phish's music apart and put it back together again in a completely new way is super cool. So what you're about to hear is a little excerpt from our interview with Jazz is Phish.
Specifically, what was the thing with Phish that pulled you in like that? What was the deal?
I mean, I'd say for me, Phish was the first band that I had heard that, like, the age I was when I got turned on to Phish was like during the grunge era, and I was in middle school, and I was listening to 9 Inch Nails, I was listening to Nirvana, and actually the first time someone played Phish for me, it wasn't in my bag. It didn't have like anger and distortion and angst. It didn't fit with who I was. But I was also studying music, and the more I listened to them, it blew my mind. Actually, Divided Sky was the first song that really caught with me, because it was a composition that didn't follow a traditional form of music. It wasn't AABA. It wasn't like verse, hook, verse. It wasn't, it was, and it's in classical music, but there are people who are composing really amazing compositions that are really difficult. The thing that separated Phish from me, which I think is for a lot of people, is that Phish is able to take really complex music and make it palatable for a large amount of people. So I was always blown away. If you go to a Phish show and you see people who aren't musicians singing guitar parts, singing guitar line to Divided Sky, that's not a typical thing to see. Non-musicians, and that song's in weird time signatures, yet a non-musician, Phish just was able to take, like, Frank Zappa I love, but his music is very much for musicians in a lot of ways, and I don't think only musicians should listen to him, but if you go to like someone doing Zappa's music and you go to the show, you're going to be in a crowd with like 90% musicians.
It's like going to a car show if you're a mechanic and appreciating cars, or if you're not a mechanic and going to a car show and appreciating cars.
Right.
Same thing.
So Phish was able to do that in a way where they could draw in a lot of people, and so like for myself being 14, 15 years old and having my mind open to this compositional music, they led me to Zappa. They led me to lots of other music because I got turned on to them. So for me, Phish was like the gateway drug to like
even want to get to the point where I studied jazz in college. It was like I'd like digested Phish's music and then said, okay, what else? Went after Zappa, listened to all his music, and it was like, okay, then what are like who's in his band, and then you look at George Duke, the ridiculous keyboardist, and then you follow his career. Next thing you know, you're like knee deep in Mahavishnu Orchestra, and Sun Ra, and Sun Ra. And it's funny you bring up Sun Ra because when we started this project, it was wanting to celebrate that experience for me and like bring it to musicians. So I called Michael Ray, who toured with Sun Ra. He's played with Phish. He's on a lot of their records, and I was like, I left a message. I didn't know him. Someone gave me his number, and I left a message for him. I was like, hey, I'm really thinking about doing this project. I explained, jazz is Phish, what I think it was going to be, and it was just a concept. It really didn't exist yet, so it was all kind of loose. And he called me immediately. He was in France. He's like, Adam, I know I don't know you, but we have to do this together. And I was like,
right on.
Okay. And he brought this
from an idea floating around, right? Just hell yeah, let's do it.
And then so for me, also another thing, like the first Phish show I went to, Dave Matthews Band sax player Leroy Moore played with them, and it was like that was really cool. And they did weather report teases, and so a cool full circle thing for me, that being my first Phish show, is that on our first Jazz is Phish record, we have Jeff Coffin playing sax, with a bunch of other horn players, and Jeff is now the Dave Matthews Band's saxophone player, so it's like a full circle thing. And then having like my first Phish show be like just laced with weather report teases, where now I'm playing with Felix now, and his father was the one who was playing on those records. It's just, for me, it's just really cool because I like got to watch the music that turned me on, and like the origins of my like kind of yearning to get deeper in music. Now that I've gone through music school, come back to the other side, wanting to like bring this music to musicians and present it in a way that's going to be palatable for like the jazz professors who thought it wasn't good enough, kind of thing. That's not my only motivation, but that was in my mind.
Wow.
It's just cool because everything kind of came full circle. So for me, it was like I don't know if validating is the right thing, but it let me know I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing.
Are you like that with?
Okay. So we finish talking to Jazz's Phish, and we're supposed to interview the Russ liquid test. And man, poor Russ got bit by a spider the night before and had fucking thing all over his arm and had been in the hospital and was trying to sleep off the Benadryl they gave him at the hospital for the spider bite. And we weren't sure if we were going to do the interview or not. And I kept telling his manager, like, hey, man, it's not the end of the world. We'll do it another time. Like, it's cool. But no, Russ was into doing it. And, boy, the three of them were a blast to interview, dude. There was a universe that came with them.
I felt like this was definitely like a silly / mini serious interview. Like, what the content of what they were saying was definitely awesome and meaty, but it was very lighthearted and silly, and it was awesome, and it was late, and it was still super fun, and it
was like we do hanging out on the porch with each other, being silly. There
I
was
felt
silliness,
like this,
and then they got deep.
This was literally like hanging out. And with your friends. And by this time, this was our second interview there. Third interview there. So we felt like it was kind of like our space. And so at least I did. I felt like it was my space. I felt very familiar with it and stuff like that. So it felt like we had them over and they were chilling and they were free to be themselves. And they were kind of a little bit sassy. And they were also super silly and fun. And thank you guys so much. I really appreciated your time too.
I have to say that Russ is one of the few people I've met that can sling words with the best of them. Man, there was a lot of shit talking going on during this interview. It was super fun.
Good repertoire.
Yeah. So, yeah, guys, I hope you enjoy this as much as we did. This was like going to another planet. And when you already live on another planet, then the planet everybody else is on, and then you meet somebody else's planet, you are doubly removed from your world. And this was super cool.
Yep.
So
and I have to just mention Devin's beautiful smile.
Yeah.
My gosh,
you'll hear the interview.
Devin's smile and
wins.
Devin's skin. Like, I mean, I look at people's skin all the time, and Devin, your skin is legit. So.
Well, Russ Liquid Test wins the High Sierra Award for the best member with the best skin.
And smile.
And smile. And eyelashes and eyebrows. Remember that. He has beautiful eyes.
Yes, he did have great eyelashes.
There's to you, Devin.
Wow.
Here's to you, Devin. I wish we could have met on a different plane than the one we met, and maybe we will another time.
I believe we will.
I think our plane was perfect. I loved
that
our
plane was
guys.
cruising at 35,000 feet.
That was awesome.
And seatbelts were off. There was no turbulence. So, check out the Russ Liquid Test, guys. Here you go.
Explaining to me, like, I came up from the Grateful Dead scene and then into the jam band scene. Yeah, electronic music was never my thing.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, come on, man.
I actually don't like electronic music.
Fuck yeah. Right on, man.
I mean, come on. So I came from the goddamn scene too.
So, the first experience I ever had with any electronic music was like at a Burning Man regional, and like this Daft Punk, I don't know, what cover band? Can you cover Daft Punk? Whatever. They played there, right? And I'm like, wow, there's something to this shit. Like,
From the be really high.
Well, yeah, I was high.
Well, for me, like I come like
what was the thing with electronic
like,
music that pulled you?
I come from like playing like music with other people with no computers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when I discovered electronic music, for me, it wasn't like I was necessarily into the music itself, but it was more like, whoa, there's this like whole infinite other palette of color to paint with. Like all the bands you hear in here, it's like everyone's playing different songs, but they're using the same tonality. you got drums, you got fucking bass, guitar, keys, and singer. And that that's a limit though. Like you can do lots of great things with it, and I'm not dogging, I love it, but the cool thing with the electronic music thing is now I get to use, and there's a whole other infinite amount of sounds I can use to incorporate, and like I feel like the different types of sounds is kind of like the different types of spices you might find on vinyl.
When as a guitar player, like, especially as a guitar player, I think it's really easy to get pigeonholed into, like, oh, are you a blues guy? Are you a jazz guy? Are you a rhythm guitar player? Are you a lead guitar player? And, like, there's all these expectations depending on however you choose to classify yourself or play, you know? And the thing that I realized in electronic music that, I mean, I came in through the jam band scene. I was a Grateful Dead fan, Phish fan. I mean, I like all the jam bands.
You got the mark just as plain as day.
Yeah, man, I got that on my fucking 18th birthday. Like, and you can do whatever you want in the electronic music scene. If you want to sample a fucking screwdriver and like scraping your nails against a chalkboard and call it a fucking song, you can fucking do that shit, you know? And if you put a cool beat behind it and some other, you know, like, it's not just that. There's other stuff that goes into the sound design, but, like, why the fuck not? You know, and it's like...
Why not use every tool in the fucking arsenal?
And you know what? When you look at the people that we all look to as heroes of music, the Pink Floyds and whoever the first fucking blues guitar player was that turned his amp too loud and got
like
a
the
distorted
Beatles.
sound.
Or
the Beatles. People looked at them
Beach
like they were
Boys.
crazy. What is this shit?
They made
know?
revolutionary.
But they were just using
They're
a new...
pushing the limits of
they
all
wanted
the
to use...
technology that was available to them.
Exactly. They just want to use all the tools that were out there, and like the electronic community is the most accepting of that shit.
If Miles Davis was alive, I bet he would have some sort of like electronic music shit going on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like with like
he did. Listen to his 80s
He'd
shit.
probably be making music with.
He was into all. He was using drum machines like, but like Parliament, Sly and the Family Stone, like the innovators of funk music, were using drum machines to write their music to. I have one of them. It's the Meister Rhythm King. It's fucking amazing. Wow. You hear it in a bunch of those Sly records.
It doesn't suck.
That doesn't suck.
It doesn't suck.
No, but I mean, you know, Bernie Worrell playing synthesizers on top of instruments, like that was a new concept, and he just was so fucking killing at it that it's undeniable now. Like, here's this new technology. You know, the thing that's cool as musicians, you know, Russ as the trumpet player, keyboard player, Devin as the drummer, music guitar player.
I play sax,
all whatever,
and flute.
You can spend all your time like practicing your one craft or your couple crafts or whatever, but you are relying on other stuff. And so when I was practicing guitar, somebody else was practicing like using Ableton and learning how to manipulate synthesizers, and those people became sort of the masters of the technology that is like the trampoline to playing the big stages and moving the most amount of people. You know, I mean, there's only so far a guitar solo can go now. It's like, it's all been done.
But is that the goal? Is that the main goal, like to move people?
Always. I mean, if you're asking for money to play, sorry, you've sold out. That by definition, nothing wrong with it. We all got to make a fucking living.
Gotta eat.
You got to eat, but you know, there's a balance of purely money and artistic integrity that you've got to find. And I don't know, I think that we're in a good spot that we're able to like use all the tools and all the voices, and we don't have anything discriminating against us, and we can balance that, you know, appropriately.
Right.
Still make money, but still stay true to what we're trying to do as a group.
as luck would have it, the little area where they had us doing our interviews at High Sierra was kind of in back of another building, and there was a nice little tent there. And when we had walked back there to do the interview with Jazz's Phish, there was nobody there, but there was this one lone dude sitting under the shade tree smoking a cigarette.
Most
And
chilling dude you ever seen.
I recognized him from on Instagram, and him and I had communicated about a month or two before the festival, but we couldn't connect and hadn't scheduled anything. And I took a look at him and I was like, "Hey, you're Reed, right?" And he said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Hey man, my name's Aaron. I'm from No Simple Road Podcast. How's it going? We talked a couple of months ago." And he was like, "Oh yeah." So we started talking and just kind of shooting the shit. And I was like, "Look, man, I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't ask, brother. Would it be cool if we do an interview tomorrow?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And boom, we interviewed Reed Mathis at High Sierra Music Festival. It was something special. What were you going to say, Mel?
Reed Mathis is my spirit animal.
Yeah.
I think Reed is a lot of people's spirit
I
animal.
have a crush on him in a lot of ways. Like,
That's cool.
After listening to what we were just listening to, what Aaron put on, Electric Beethoven, a lot of times I love to, like, smoking pot. Like, I don't want to know what it is, like, before I smoke it, because it's kind of an adventure. Like, what is it going to do to me, right? Well, like, Aaron put Reed's music on, and, like, it just took me somewhere. It reminded me of, like, when I was, like, a little kid, like 70s, but, like, going through a video game, but, like, getting my ears tickled, and, like, taking me for a ride. Like, so many, like, through different worlds. And you guys, he just was so cool without trying to be cool. You know what I mean? Like, he was just chilling in, with his baseball tee and a baseball cap, chilling out, as, like, cool as a cucumber. Like, that's how I remember him. And the interview and him just being so generous with his time. He's like, yeah, why not? 1 o'clock? Yeah, of course. Like, just his musicianship, his intellect, his sweet attitude. He was just a sweetie Petey. So you guys are going to really enjoy this as much as we did. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel how much we all really loved him.
Yeah, and go ahead, Apple.
I was just going to say this was great. It was great meeting Reed, and it was an education in music.
Definitely.
When he agreed to the interview, he goes, "Heck yeah, I love to talk about music." He was excited to do it. He was so, again, welcoming, gracious with his time. We felt like we could have talked to him forever, and again, felt like it was one of your good friends, just sitting there, hanging out, talking.
And I even communicated with him after the festival. I was like, "Hey, man, I just want you to know that, like, more than doing an interview, we feel like we made a friend. And if you ever come through Portland, hit us up, brother, because there was a level. This is one of those conversations that you feel it while it's happening. And I don't know, just the vibe of it and what was going on. There was something on another level happening between all of us that was going down while we were having this conversation.
He made us all tear up.
Yeah.
All of us, including him, talking so deeply.
Yeah, we got pretty deep in
passionately.
this one, guys. So, High Sierra, thanks for happy accidents like running into Mahali and running into Reed. And I hope you guys enjoy this as much as we did.
Me and my friends, not by the people that are ordained by the state to play this music.
Right.
But anybody. This is like Bob Dylan music. This is folk music. This is the people's music, you know. And that, it took me 20 years to get around to it, but I knew in that moment that it was a good idea.
It's so special.
Basically.
It's so special, Reed.
Like, hell of an idea.
I had those minor, not anything close to what you're talking about, but tripped and listened to classical music before, you know, as him and I as teenagers doing our thing, like whatever. And it never got, it never got inside though. It never hooked me like the way a Live Dead album or something else did. And what you did really made it approachable for someone with the mindset like I have or had when I first heard it, like to get inside of it and go, oh shit, this is what the thing is. Now I get it. And like I was saying, when you get inside of it and you're under the hood the way you were, are you feeling that shamanic presence from him and the whole thing?
I mean, I wouldn't say from him, he's dead.
No, but I'm just saying, like.
But I feel access to that conduit of energy, but that's because we have nearly identical brain circuitry. I mean, for fuck's sake, we're 98.7% identical to chimps. So between you and I, the difference between us in our neuro wiring and how our bodies feel and operate is so slight as to be minuscule. Like we are nearly identical, all of us, every human on the earth. And so he tapped into that shit. And
I love that because you're bringing more similarity and unity as opposed to where we were talking earlier about genre and separation and how to mold you into a certain thing so these people can like you instead of saying, this is what I do. Like just feel it, accept it, take it in.
I mean, ideally, you know, I fought with my manager about calling the band Electric Beethoven because I didn't want it to be about Beethoven. As far as I don't want people to be thinking the word classical while they're listening to us play. I don't want people to be thinking about Beethoven. Most people don't know about Beethoven. They think Beethoven and Mozart and Bach and all these things are one thing, even though they were hundreds of years apart.
Right.
You know, Beethoven and Bach are as far apart as you and Louis Armstrong, but they act like it's the same thing.
Same deal, yeah.
So I didn't want all that baggage to be part of people coming to see us play.
Yeah.
But he was like, you know, we'll have a much easier time promoting this if we just say what it is. So I was like, okay, whatever. And he put the word electric on there because of LSD, I guess.
Okay.
So.
Well, I guess that makes sense. I didn't even cross my mind, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I lost that battle.
You lost the battle.
I've never been a big one for naming things.
You fucking won the war, though.
But what's important to me is that, like, we can apply what we call dance music, dance rhythm, like what the rhythms that make us feel funky, to these forms, these chord progressions. You know, we're not copying all of everything about what he wrote. We're playing it like you would open a Grateful Dead songbook and it says C, G, F, and the lyrics are written above. And you just strum C, G, F. We're playing Beethoven like that.
Okay.
Where all the details are up to you. You get to be yourself. When you play a Grateful Dead song, do you do an impression of those guys? Or do you do what feels good to you?
You do what feels good, totally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is what has been completely removed from the classical world, if it was ever there.
It's become structure and you play the structure.
It's not about you. It's like this. It's like the Catholic Mass. You're just doing it because you do it, because this is what we do. And it's like you just say the words, you read the script. It's become like a script.
Yeah.
And he was an improviser. All of his music came from him improvising. He would improvise at the piano. I mean, after he went deaf, he cut the legs off. So the whole body of the piano was on the hardwood floor. And then he would kneel. He played kneeling or cross-legged on the floor so that the whole floor would come up to his body. You know, and then he would improvise, and then he would be like, that was good. Write it down.
Because it felt
good, and because something would click, like a songwriter. He was closer to John Lennon than he was to Bach.
Okay.
In his process. You know what I mean?
That's
wow. We do now. Thank you for this. This is an education.
Yeah, big time.
I mean,
that's really cool.
Wow.
I just want to really quick go back to that LSD trip, and the only reason why is because you said you listened to that and then it changed something.
Yeah.
Did you feel your story in that?
Yes. I felt, Joseph Campbell talks about the hero with a thousand faces, that like basically all stories, all great stories have this fucking arc. And that's not because we all got together and shook hands and said, this will be the arc. Yeah. It's because that's an accurate model of our human nervous system.
Wow.
So that's the shaman's not goal or duty, but that's his path.
That's the mark of a shaman.
The shaman's way is
Shamans
to pass
don't
through the
decide
dark.
they're going to do that. They have a schizophrenic breakdown and they recover.
Wow.
Did you say that staged something to happen to you during your travels?
I don't know. I mean,
schizophrenic sounds like a harsh word, but you know what I mean? Like just kind of like a...
I mean, I've definitely healed from a variety of injuries.
Shit.
Yeah.
But that's we all do that. That's why you're rooting for Luke Skywalker when you see Star Wars. That's why these stories work. That's why all these stories have the same arc, because we're all doing that all the time. Nobody had perfect parents. Nobody had a perfect childhood. We were all wounded before we could talk. And we all spend the rest of our lives recovering from that.
And from additional wounds.
And then on top of that, the new wounds.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I relate to Beethoven as a guy on that level.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't gone deaf and I wasn't orphaned, and those same things haven't happened to me, but other awful things have happened, and and awful things happen to everybody. We're all that's that's the Buddha. That's the first noble truth.
Life is suffering.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's a mistranslation from what I understand from the original Pali, which was Buddha's language. All life is off. Like the word he used was dukkha, which is when one of your wheels on your vehicle is an oval.
Okay.
It's not a perfect circle. So it never worked. It's never smooth, basically. He's like, it's never gonna work. It's not all life is suffering, it's that all life will feel wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're in this
your relationships are gonna feel wrong.
We're in this body.
Your identity's gonna feel wrong.
That.
Your feelings are gonna be uncomfortable. You're gonna be uncomfortable in your body. And then you're gonna go grow old and die. That's not because of you. That's because that's what happens in this dimension to everything. No tree is in the ideal place. You know what I mean? It's like yes! Yeah, it's like, oh, this is it! This is it!
Score! Then they wouldn't grow.
And even if you do feel like you're in the ideal relationship or the ideal job, it's gonna go away eventually.
then the last day comes, and it's Sunday. It's the last day of the festival. We've not slept. We're all pretty tired. What?
Yeah, we got some sleep. I
Well-
mean, not enough every night, but I don't think anybody there did. There's just music all night long till 3:45 in the morning.
Yeah, man.
Is when the music stops.
I can't even count how many concerts we saw in 2.5 days there. Like, a lot.
Yeah.
It's constant music. The food is amazing. Like, that place was a well-oiled machine. But yeah, it comes to the last day, and this is our swan song here.
And I just got to say, in between, Reed took off immediately and told us we have to go watch Nathan Moore, which that was a treat.
Yeah, we didn't get to interview Nathan, but we will on this show.
Yes.
At some point. He was amazing. Talk about a wordsmith.
Yeah, and like Americana, it was just incredible seeing him. So check him out.
Yeah, but this was a big deal for us. This family and this house has spent many hours listening to Circles Around the Sun and the Chris Robinson Brotherhood. And we got the opportunity to interview Neal Casal. And it was really cool, man. Another one of those things where we're walking through the festival and, oh, hey, there's Neal.
He was like Waldo because we kept,
he kept popping up.
Yeah, we saw him all around.
And I just walked over to him. I was like, hey, Neal, I'm Aaron from No Simple Road. We're supposed to interview you later today. And he was like, okay, cool. And we went inside the Funk and Jam house during the day before any of the bands were playing or anything, because there was more noise than normal out in the tent that we were doing our recordings in. It was great to have that space over there, and it was air conditioned in there. It was nice and cool because it was hot on that last day. And sat down with Neal and talked about the new Circles Around the Sun album and the CRB and the Grateful Dead and what it was like to write all the set break music for Fare Thee Well, and some really funny stories. It was cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. A very surreal environment we did it in. It was.
And he let us watch the video of that one for Chuck, and it was like a kaleidoscope of things for your eyes to see. Flamingos and cars and black and white. I don't even know. It was amazing. It was so cool.
It reminded me of the animation in the Grateful Dead movie when the Uncle Sam is riding the chopper and they're playing the wheel and all the
towns and
everything's happening. It kind of reminded me of that. It was fucking awesome.
It was amazing.
And it was cool, man. Doing this job as a podcaster, you get to meet these people that you've looked up to for a long time, and it was just really cool to sit down and finally get to look him in the eye and say thank you for what he's done for our family and the music that they've given us, and get to hear a little bit of the stories behind it. So I hope you guys enjoy this little clip.
And just putting it out there, and you're having this experience, and then all of a sudden they're like, we'd like to see it live. Like, what do you do? I did that in 5 hours in the studio.
Yeah, that came a little bit later, where people started requesting us to, play live, and then, got released. Like RHINO put it out as a double vinyl and CD, and it got, really nice attention.
How fun that must have been.
It's great, yeah. But I had a funny moment standing in the stadium that day during that first set break. I was way at the back of the stadium because I had helped Betty Cantor get to her seat, and then I got separated from my friends, and I ended up way at the back of that place. I don't know how or why, but I was standing by myself, just kind of taking it in. And this guy comes up to me, and he says, excuse me, I don't know why I'm asking you this, but I don't know, you look like you might know. Can you tell me who's playing this music?
Oh, shit.
You look like.
And we were all the way at the back of that place, so I wasn't in any kind of like VIP area or anything,
Right.
you know. And
Dude, you just hit the lottery.
I said, man, you're not gonna believe this, but it's me. He's like, no, it's not. You know, tell me the truth. Stop. You know,
You're fucking with me at a
like,
dead
don't,
show, bro.
Don't bullshit me. You know. Wow. And I said, man, I know this sounds unbelievable.
What?
But it's me. He was like, what? Then he brought his wife over and I told him the story. And that was like one of the funniest parts of the whole thing, you know. But yeah, the reaction that we got, you know, was totally unexpected and beautiful.
I want to just put it to rest in case you had any lingering or niggling doubt in the back of your head. You fucking nailed it, brother.
Thanks.
It felt like home.
Thanks.
And
yeah.
it does. And
That is on in our household. So
Yeah, I was
much.
gonna say
It's the
there's
soundtrack
a certain
of our
feeling
house, yeah.
that the minute that music it does it turns me on in a certain way, like, you know, it's like, because I guess during that time, either right before that or shortly, one of those times we had done DMT.
Oh shit.
And it has a reminiscent sound of that space. And so once I hear that music, it almost puts me back in that place. So there's like this connection with that specific. So I don't care if my thing's on shuffle. Once it comes on, it like does a certain thing to me that is so pleasant, you know? So thank you for that.
Yeah, and DMT is pretty intense. So yeah, it's good.
Pretty intense.
Yeah.
And so like that album, it's intense in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
Not like, you know, hard.
In a very patient way, yeah.
Yeah. Very patient.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, the fact that stuff got released and, you know, got accepted by the Grateful Dead community at large, and it's an amazing thing, yeah. And it was like putting our education that we got with Phil, you know, who was so good to us and like teaching us all the songs and the philosophy of the music, and you know, we got to study it firsthand with him, and then actually like
it's like going to the sensei.
Yeah. How did that come about for you, working with Phil like that? Like,
well, I first met Phil when I played with Ryan Adams a long time ago. He sat in with us at the Hollywood Bowl. This was in like 2006. So we met. Well, actually, we met before that, but yeah. And then I sat in with Phil and Friends in New York in 2008. So we just kind of knew each other, and then you know, he knew Chris too, so I met him again, you know, when the CRB started.
Okay.
And then when Terrapin opened, you know, he needed help.
Sure.
You know, he needed musicians there, so he called me, and I didn't really know the catalog very well. I was always a Deadhead, and I saw a lot of shows, but I never really learned the music because I was always making original music for so many years. So I had to learn really, really fast, and I worked really hard to, you know, get proficient at that stuff.
It's a language.
It's a language, and I wanted to be called back. You know, I wanted to be a part of it.
Sure.
So, you know, and that's when they were doing those rambles with, you know, really great players, man. You know, Joe Russo was there all the time, and, you know, John Kadlicek, you know, all the, all of them. You
All
know,
the heavy
Jeff,
hitters,
all those heavy hitters, and I just kind of got thrown into
kind
that.
of a unique thing that he did there.
Yes, it was an amazing thing.
Gonna rock you all night long, 'cause I play hard for you, babe. Can't get enough of your love. Not gonna sleep at night, you're the only thing that I'm dreaming of.
So there you have it, man. quite the journey to High Sierra, a whirlwind trip through the ethers of talking and experience and finding stuff out. And if you want to hear the full interviews, head over to nosimpleroad.com and you can catch the full interviews there. We want to send out a huge, gigantic, throbbing, heartfelt thank you to Paige and everybody over at High Sierra that took such good care of us and helped us with everything.
So much.
And an especially big thank you to Osiris Podcast Network, RJ and Tom, for hooking us up and sending us out there. We hope we did you proud, boys. We hope we did you proud. What?
I just was going to say thank you, everybody involved in this, listeners, everyone to us. It is an amazing journey we're going on, and this was the first on the road one that just, we got to meet a new family, and I can't wait to go back to High Sierra Music Festival next year.
Best festival in the country ever. That's all I got to say.
I would say this is my first real festival. Like, I've been to the other a couple other festivals, but this is my first real festival. So when we got there and you have to remember, you guys by listening helped get us there, first of all. So High Sierra wasn't even in our reality or in our sight over a year ago. It wasn't. And so by us doing this, you're like literally getting us capturing the dream fulfilled of all of our literal favorite bands, of the music that we listen to all the time. We're getting to interview them behind stage and with them and after they perform and before they perform, and establish really a personal, intimate conversation with them in 3 to 5 minutes and have some fun. So you guys are hearing this really cool journey on our No Simple Road. And I just want to say thank you from me, Melanie, to everybody out there who's written in, who supported us, and who still does support us, and who's yet to jump on the bus.
Support us.
Who does? Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, High Sierra. You guys are the best, and hopefully we'll see you back next year. Yeah, that was me with the woo. Yeah, man. And Osiris is the best podcast network around. Check it out. And like I said, if you want to hear these full interviews, head over to nosimpleroad.com. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher, and Spotify. And we love you guys.
We love you.
Thank you for making this No Simple Road so much fucking cool.
Yeah.
Osiris.